My name is Christine. I'm a 60-year-old woman. Though I have a peaceful home now, I've been through some really tough times. That was about 30 years ago. Back then, I was 30 and my husband Gabe was 34. We had been married for 5 years. We had a 1-year-old daughter. We were living with my mother-in-law, Carrie. She was 62 and bedridden. I was the one taking care of her, and I was fine with that. My father-in-law had already passed away, and Carrie's house was gone. He had debts, so we sold my in-laws' property to pay them off. Most of the leftover money also went to us because we were caring for Carrie. Caring for her was tough, but we had reasons for doing so, and I had found ways to manage, so it wasn't a problem for me. However, the issue was with my sister-in-law Riza's family. My sister-in-law Riza is 37 and divorced with 2 kids, ages 5 and 2. They moved in with us 2 years ago. When she first got divorced, I told her, "You can stay here for a year until you get on your feet." But 2 years have passed, and there is no sign of them leaving. It seems that because Carrie lives with us, they think of our house as their parental home. At first, they were somewhat humble, but lately they act like they have a right to live here, too. Riza had a pretty good reason for her divorce, even from my point of view. Her ex-husband had debt issues. At one point, he took money from someone and basically offered Riza as collateral. Because of this, they got divorced. So, I understand she needs time to heal and become independent, which is why I said it was okay for her to stay. Riza also seems anxious about living alone with her kids. Once when Carrie was in the hospital for tests, Gabe stayed overnight with Riza. But it happened that we had a family emergency out of town. And when Gabe said, "I'm going to the wake and funeral and will be back in a day," Riza broke down and clung to him, saying, "Don't leave me alone, I'm scared." So he changed his plans and stayed in a hotel with her for the night. While it doesn't seem like Riza had any intention of becoming independent, her attitude of acting like she's in her own home annoys me. Gabe feels the same. Even though we still have a mortgage, the house we built together isn't sitting right with him anymore. That said, Gabe has mixed feelings as he also feels sympathy for Riza. We haven't taken any living expenses from Riza for a year, accepting her as a long-term guest with that understanding. However, after the 1-year mark, I spoke up and Gabe aired his grievances. Now she contributes $300 a month. But to be honest, $300 isn't enough to support all 3 of us. And it's not just about money. I don't like the fact that they're living in our home. Carrie, who doesn't speak much due to the after effects of her illness, told me a year ago, "I'm worried about Riza too, but I'm sorry for being such a burden. Please help her become independent to some extent. I want her to be independent too, but I'm not her parent, and it's challenging if she doesn't want to. I also have to handle daily chores and child-rearing tasks for Riza and her kids. On top of my own family's responsibilities in taking care of Carrie, it's nothing but stress for me. Even though I've been quite vocal and sometimes blunt, it seems like my words just pass right by her, as if I'm just complaining like a mom would. For instance, the other day she put her laundry in our hamper. I told her explicitly, "Follow the rules, the money you're putting in isn't enough, and you've overstayed your welcome, please leave." Her response was to casually say, "Well, this is like my parents' house," and walk away. We even have 2 separate hampers to sort the laundry between our family and hers, and yet, this still happened. If she is scared to live on her own and still wants to stay with us, then I wish she'd show more consideration and share the responsibilities. But that doesn't mean she can just stay here forever. Honestly, I think Gabe might be spoiling her too much past the point where it's acceptable. I'm planning to have a serious talk with him. We've had countless discussions, but this time, I'm prepared to discuss the worst-case scenario, including divorce, to make my point clear. If I keep going like this, I might just get sick. I want to spend more time with my child, have some one-to-one moments, you know? One of the stressors making me want Riza and her family to leave is how her eldest son treats my daughter as a nuisance. Despite my multiple clear statements about this, Riza just doesn't seem to get it, and it's annoying. I've thought about taking my kids and leaving, but I always feel like I'm the one who's going to be blamed. Even if I left Carrie behind, I doubt Risa would do anything for her. She often says things like, "I can't believe you can even handle diaper changes. I could never do that." I'm also concerned because her cooking is iffy. But I can easily see this having a negative impact on my daughter over time, so I think it's time to toughen up and think of alternatives. It might sound mean, but I've started to notice a difference in the quality of meals between Risa's family and ours, and I'm considering cutting back on what I cook for them. Some have said it's too little, but they're only contributing to the rent, so I announced that I'll reduce it gradually. Risa apparently complained to Gabe, but it seems he just said it's only fair. Unfortunately, that's where the conversation ended. Later, Carrie and I had a discussion. I said I can't sustain myself like this. Stress is piling up, and I can't properly attend to my daughter. I even find myself getting angry over trivial things, which I regret.
My daughter isn't comfortable in her own home because she's treated as a nuisance by Risa's children. If Risa's family doesn't move out within 2 months, I'm prepared to rent an apartment and live with my daughter. Divorce is also on the table.
Gabe admitted he knew I was stressed, but didn't know how to ask Risa to leave. When he consulted friends suggesting to throw all of Risa's stuff out and change the locks, he got responses like, "Won't that involve the police?" So he was mulling it over. That day, Carrie told me, "I want you to call Risa to the room when she gets back." I didn't know what she was planning to say, but I assumed she would ask Risa to leave. I can't be sure, but it feels like things are starting to move now that I've shown some resolve. I want to stay focused and not let my emotions get the best of me. For dinner tonight, I plan to cook, but we'll let everyone know I won't be cooking starting tomorrow.
After Risa got home, Carrie, Gabe, and I told her about our discussion, being quite firm in our stance and words. As a result, we finally got her to say, "I'll start looking for a place tomorrow."
However, before she agreed to that, we heard all kinds of complaints like, "If I contribute $500 for rent, that should be enough, right?" In response, I said the following.
It's not nearly enough. We have said this multiple times. If you want to stay here, you should pay what we're asking. In reality, you should be bowing your head and thanking my wife, who you are inconveniencing. This is your home. This is my home, with my wife and my kids. Don't get that twisted. If you don't leave within a month, we are considering legal action. We won't know or care where you go. You've been told to be out in a month.
We also had her put it in writing. Finally, Risa and her crew left, and I felt genuinely relieved. Life became peaceful when she left, and I could better focus on caregiving and raising our child. However, the story didn't end there. A few days after Risa left, we were notified that she collapsed and fell unconscious while on her way from her apartment to work. The cause is unknown. She woke up by evening, and while physically okay, it seemed there might be some mental issues at play. It was a massive shock, considering things were finally starting to look up for her.
Carrie and I are discussing what to do next.
I can't help but worry about the choices Carrie and Gabe will make moving forward. If I ever have to take in my sister-in-law again and we live together for a while, and it just doesn't work out, I find myself thinking about various options. Should my kids and I separate from my spouse, or would it be better to just get a divorce?
Carrie and Gabe later proposed that Risa stay with us until winter. They've inquired about family shelters, but were told immediate admission is unlikely. The earliest entry could be 2 months from now, or as late as 5 months.
Even though Risa has a medical diagnosis, the counseling and overall assessment indicate that her anxiety could improve if she had someone to rely on at night. This makes Risa's case for shelter admission a low priority, especially when we offer the alternative of living together. It seems the authorities think that as a family, we should pull together. It's really not that simple for us. As for me, I worry that Risa will get comfortable and decide to stay for good, even if temporarily. The fact that she collapsed is also a concern. Carrie and Gabe insist that they will definitely make time and that she won't return because it is not an option. Gabe and Carrie insist that they will definitely make her leave this time, and that she won't return because a shelter is a safer option. However, I've heard Risa complain about the lack of private bathrooms and shared laundry facilities at the shelter, so I worry she'll find excuses to stay. To Carrie and Gabe, I may look like a wicked wife kicking out a family member, but I don't want Risa to feel so at home here that she doesn't want to leave. I intend to continue saying that I don't want to live with her, but I'm at a loss for what to do. As it stands, the plan Carrie and Gabe presented to Teresa is that she'll handle post-meal cleanup, general cleaning, assisting Carrie with bathroom needs, and caring for her child. She'll also contribute $800 for rent and food. Still, I'm unhappy and stressed by this arrangement, especially knowing it puts a burden on my daughter. Frankly, I don't even want to entertain the idea of living with Risa, even temporarily. I hate to say this, but I think it's a good opportunity to make them realize they can't manage without me. I don't believe Risa is capable of fulfilling these responsibilities, especially the caregiving tasks. This arrangement seems doomed to fail from the start. If Risa was going to keep living with us, it became clear to me that Gabe and Carrie had no intention of dealing with her. It seemed like a good time to consider divorce. I tried to talk some sense into Gabe, but he wouldn't listen. He promised to kick her out when she had to move into a mother-child home, but I couldn't take it anymore. I packed my things, left a note, and moved out. Now, my daughter and I are living in a budget-friendly apartment. It's only been a few days since Risa arrived, but she seems to be causing problems already. She keeps contacting me saying that life is meaningless without me there. I finally told her, "You brought this on yourself by not being independent. If we divorce, it's your fault. Let Carrie take care of you." I cried, but I don't care anymore. Gabe and Carrie have also been begging me to come back, but as long as Risa is there, I'm 100% not going back. In fact, I told them, if you don't kick out Risa, I'll file for divorce and demand alimony in court. 2 weeks have passed since then, and I've heard from Gabe. As expected, Risa has been helping with household chores or caregiving, especially when it comes to sanitary issues. Risa hasn't been helping with household chores or caregiving, especially when it comes to sanitary issues. Gabe has been juggling work and home responsibilities. It's become unmanageable. He even took some time off to figure things out. He was so frustrated, he rented an apartment just for Risa and moved her in. That's why he's begging for me to come back. He thought about hiring a helper, but it seems not to be an immediate option. Besides, it would be financially difficult to keep a helper long term. Putting Carrie in a facility is also not a quick fix and would strain our budget. Gabe is at his wit's end. However, I'm hesitant to go back so soon, because Risa could come back and create problems again. She has a track record of coming back within a week. Right now, it's only been 4 days since Risa got kicked out. Gabe's job doesn't handle sudden absences well, so his position could be jeopardized if this continues. I'm conflicted about going back. Could I be the only one who saw things coming? If they could kick Risa out, they should have done it from the get-go. Things would have remained the same, caregiving for Carrie and managing the household chores. Actually, without Risa and her family, we could have managed even better. Although paying for Risa's apartment is a burden, we are now effectively paying for 2 apartments. We could have saved money if we had acted sooner. After 2 years of history, I never imagined things would go south. But when they did, they quickly kicked Risa out and called me back in. Would they have never called me back if things were going well? It's as if I'm only good for housework and caregiving. I can't help but think that way. Even though Risa left and things mostly went my way, I was still uneasy. Was it my role in their lives or their sheer foolishness? I'm not sure. After a lot of thinking, I decided to move back home. People might think it's a reckless decision, but I thought so too many times over. But if we keep going like this, Gabe won't last, we'll go bankrupt, and our family will fall apart. So in another sense, there's nothing left to lose. I don't want to hastily choose divorce either. So I thought this is really the last chance and decided to return home. Gabe was thrilled, and he apologized to me. He said he wants to live with me and the kids after all. After all, even hearing that my worries weren't gone, I realized we can never go back to how we were. Somehow Risa found out and barged in again. Gabe, Carrie, and Risa are talking. I figured it's best if I don't participate, so I'm left out. Overhearing their conversation, Gabe was earnestly stating that he is the owner of the house. Also, it seems Risa might think of this place as a kind of home because Carrie is here. In that regard, Carrie is more of a freeloader than a housemate. Therefore, Risa can't be a part of this household, he kept explaining. But there's no way Risa would back down from that. As expected, Risa started saying, "What if I collapse again? What happens to the kids? Can you take responsibility if something happens? Even the doctors say it's better if only the children and I live together." Gabe and Carrie fell silent. Then Gabe said, "All right, until we find a place in a mother-child home." Just as Gabe said that, I stormed into the room they were in. I asked Gabe if he's really taking Risa back. Gabe was at a loss for words. I turned my eyes to Risa. Risa had a smug look on her face. She probably thought she could easily manipulate Gabe and others with her words. I couldn't hold back any longer and said, "You ever think about the future? You have 2 kids, right? Planning to send them to high school and college? Can you even afford that? We've got kids too. They'll grow up, you know. Do you think we can all still fit in this house then? Do you think your kids will accept this lifestyle when they're teenagers?" "I doubt it, both physically and emotionally. You're 37 and don't even have any qualifications. You're running out of time to get a decent job. Your eldest is what, 5 years old now? He'll be a teenager in roughly 10 years. What's he going to think about his mom, who can't even hold a decent job, can't do housework, and relies on family just to survive? And how will he feel when he sees he's had fewer opportunities in life because of you? Our daughter will get a proper education, and he'll see that gap right under the same roof." You were talking about responsibilities earlier, but I think that's my line. Do you even feel responsible for your children's lives? I feel sorry for them, born to a mother like you who can only rely on others. Do you have any dignity?
Sorry for them, born to a mother who can only rely on others. Do you have any dignity? Doesn't it make you miserable? Don't you get tired of being despised and looked down upon? Don't you ever wonder what you are living for? Or are you just existing purely on instinct, like some weed growing by the side of the road? Even your ex-husband deserves pity. I used to think it was your fault for marrying such a loser, but maybe he became that way because of you. You know, they say some women can really ruin a man. Are you the epitome of that? Was trembling and shouted.
What are you even saying? Do you know what he did to me?
Even if he hurt you, it probably didn't clear his conscience. I can totally understand how your ex-husband must have felt. If he had custody of the kids, it might have been better for them, compared to being with you.
What do you know? You don't know anything about him or me.
Why state the obvious? I've never met your ex-husband, and I certainly don't want to understand someone like you, who can't even understand her own kids' feelings. Don't bother talking, your voice is irritating enough.
You're so annoying. You're the worst.
If I'm the worst, then what does it make you depending on such a woman to get by? Just go. You've got nothing meaningful to say anyway. Maybe you've just run out of words. Stop messing around. Why should I do what you say?
Stop messing around. Why should I do what you say?
Even after all this, you still want me to take care of you? You really have no pride, huh? Why don't you go ahead and beg then? Should be easy for you.
Was now screaming nonsense, glaring at me all the while. But eventually she closed her mouth, trembling, fell to her knees and begged.
Is this what you wanted? Don't tell me to leave anymore.
I stepped on Risa's head as she begged.
What are you talking about? I never said I'd take care of you if you begged. Don't get it twisted. You really are stupid. Remember how you told Gabe some nonsense earlier? Something about, what if you collapse or something happens to your child? Gabe may be soft on you, but do you want me to tell you off instead?
Both Risa and Gabe shuddered.
I couldn't care less, really. Whether you collapse somewhere or your kid ends up lost, to me, it's like saying the loud cicada from yesterday died today. If I had to say, it's a relief. Get lost. This is the second time, there won't be a third.
Risa screamed something and bolted out of the house. I haven't seen her in 30 years since that day. I know nothing about her life thereafter. Whether she ended up in a shelter or if she's even alive, driving her out was the right thing to do. I could finally focus on my own family. Ever since that day, I feel like Gabe and Carrie have been a little distant. But I drove Risa out for them, so I'm not the bad guy, right?